Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Public Announcement Podcast. And today we have a very interesting topic to talk about, and that is the forming of opinions and the sort of acceptance of opinions, and how certain opinions are, in my opinion at least, becoming socially unacceptable, and therefore the entire notion of freedom of speech is completely useless in these terms. Now, I will further explain what I mean by this, but let's just begin at what's happening right now. We can see that the world today, or at least in most countries, it's kind of polarized when it comes to opinions. Now, many people have used polarized, or the society is polarized, only when mentioning politics or directly talking about politics. But I would dare to suggest that not only the politics theme is polarized, but many of the social problems and their solutions are too. There are simply two or three camps usually holding their certain position, ignoring what the other part or the other camps have to say and just saying that their point must be the best one. I have talked about this in the previous episodes. But the problem is when this camp or when this group of people become the majority. Now, what happens then is that when you say an opinion that is counter to their beliefs, they deem it socially unacceptable. And some people, we have seen this in the online world, get banned from using certain social media outlets or expressing their opinions on certain platforms. Even entire blogs or websites or communities are getting erased for just discussing, let's say, the wrong things in big quotation marks. And the people who ban them, that's the most important one. They believe they're the good guys. They believe they're actually serving the world by doing this. They believe that they are serving their society and that they're doing the right thing. Now, many opinions today, as I already mentioned, are based on something that is maybe considered taboo or something that we shouldn't talk about or even question. And that, in my opinion, is very wrong, because there should be always an option to question something. And that's why we have freedom of speech. Now, the freedom of speech, however, works only if everybody respects it. If somebody disrespects your freedom of speech, then the entire notion of freedom of speech doesn't work. If somebody tells you cannot say this in front of me and you cannot say that, well, then you don't have freedom of speech, because you don't have the ultimate freedom of speech in the definition. Freedom of speech is supposed to grant you that without repercussions you can say your opinion. You can criticize your government, you can criticize a newspaper outlet, you can even say that that opinion is wrong and why you think so. But if somebody disrespects, or if somebody says that your freedom of speech does not apply with this opinion and you simply cannot say it, well, that's all it takes. It doesn't have to be a large group, or it doesn't have to be a law. You don't have freedom of speech in that certain context. And this is the important part to understand. Freedom of speech is supposed to serve people. It works hand in hand with the society, right? Because the society reacts to the freedom of speech. The society therefore uses it. When an individual speaks outside in front of the society, he has granted the freedom of speech only if the society itself acknowledges that the individual has the freedom of speech. And this is what happens with the opinions. Once you have an opinion that the majority of people don't consider to be unacceptable, the majority of people consider to be unacceptable, you lose your freedom of speech. Why? Because let's say you go out on a public place or whatever, and you start speaking some opinion that, let's say, the majority doesn't like. The people are gonna ignore you, and the people are gonna try to get you down. That is not freedom of speech. That is, I don't know what that is, but it's not freedom of speech. Freedom of speech should be that you could stand up and people that want to listen to you will come there, or people even that don't want to listen to you will come there, listen to you, and leave if they don't like your speech. Freedom of speech should be independent from the people. It should be that everybody is granted the right to say whatever the fuck they want, and who wants to listen to them, well, they should, and who doesn't, doesn't. But if we start to ban opinions, if we outright start to say that this opinion is wrong to think, we are limiting freedom of speech in this way. And once you have the majority as a group who deems certain opinions as unacceptable, you lose your freedom of speech, even though it's defined in some weird-ass constitution that you have in your country. You lose the ability to freely express your ideas, because you know you will become a social outcast if you do so. Let's imagine an environment where 90 people think that, I don't know, drinking milk is bad, just to say an example. or 95 even. Now, those 5 people that will start to talk about that drinking milk is good, they will become social outcasts. The society will say, oh, they're the weird ones, we don't want them here. How about you just leave because you said milk is bad for drinking? Now, of course, when considering milk, we are not so polarized, but let's say we start talking about politics more. We can see it on social platforms. These people get banned, these people get demonetized on YouTube, or they even get fined in some countries. There was this case in Britain where a woman got fined because she made fun of something on Twitter. I mean, that's just crazy, because you should have the ability to say, as I repeat, and I will repeat many times in this video, you have the right to say whatever you want. And people around you have the right to listen to you or not listen to you, but nobody has the direct right to tell you what to say and when to say it. But the state will always say, oh, you have freedom of speech granted. But once the society looks down on you and you start saying your opinion, you will again become a social outcast. But many people will say, okay, I will become a social outcast, but at least I will speak the truth, right? But many people don't get the context of the word or the true meaning. Now, of course, we have mostly seen this in the online world. There have been, of course, some consequences drawn in the real world, but the real banning of opinions or shouting and screaming and pointless arguing, I mean, we have all seen it, but not to the extent of the online world. Now, imagine if you would come out, say something that you think is true, the society would deem you an outcast, and I don't know, you would not have so much opportunities, even though you would be talented in that certain field or well educated. Somebody would not hire you based on your opinions. Some private institution might deny you a service. At the end of the day, if you are a private owner of a bar, you can't deny service to a customer. You can say some reason that he was being violent, or he seemed like he was riling up and you wanted to protect your business. That is all alright. But once these private individuals take their political matters and start to put them into private institutions, as I mentioned, you might be denied service. Now, with these people sort of being in the society or part of the society, they will eventually destroy you in a way. Because, as we already mentioned, if you become a social outcast, you might risk having your access to social services being taken. Of course, this does not mean that you will end up or die hungry, but this kind of opinion banning can lead to you having some serious problem in life, or you expressing a different opinion than the majority. Now, I do not even have to get started into saying how dangerous is this, because if we are granted the freedom of speech, it was made for some kind of reason. It was exactly made for this type of reason, so there isn't one big mainstream opinion that just ignores every single one of those side stream opinions or those less known opinions. I'm not saying we should accept and pat everyone on the back no matter how bad their opinion is. I'm just saying that sometimes your opinion or the opinion of the majority is bound to have some flaws, and these smaller opinions can bring those criticisms to light. And it's good because we are essentially striving to be a better society, or at least I like to think so, and therefore we have to have a bulletproof opinion on things, and with these small opinions telling us what we have and what kind of mistakes, we can get better at this certain job. We can understand more about the world, we can understand about the different perspectives of people and maybe even minorities, or different groups, and see the world through their lenses and maybe try to somehow incorporate their view into our view too. And at the end of the day, that's what a society should be. Now, I know this is kind of cliche and everybody is sort of mentioning it in the past days, but this really brings home or reminds me of the book 1984 by George Orwell. I'm pretty sure everybody is kind of familiar with it, and it mainly reminds me of the part where the party sort of holds this view that whenever they catch a political prisoner or something, it is not enough to just execute the prisoner. They have to persuade him that his execution was good, and the prisoner himself has to ask for the execution in sorts of way. To explain this, for example, and a prisoner would hold a different opinion than the majority or the big ruling party would. So the ruling party would re-educate him, and then he would see like, oh wait, I've done wrong because I've rebelled against this glorious opinion. Why don't you just end my misery? And this is exactly what is happening in our world in smaller numbers. People are staying quiet because they of course don't want to be drawn into some political discussion for just expressing their views. there might be more people with opinions that are not really acceptable to the society, but they stay quiet, they stay like, okay, let's not have an argument. And I perfectly understand those people. Not everybody can afford to lose such fight. And of course, when you go into such fights with these people, you are essentially risking that you lose, and losing can have effects for some. If you have a stable job, which is of a politically biased nature, expressing an opinion counter to that political biased nature may cause you to lose a job, or it may alienate some of your good friends. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. People are afraid to share their opinions because how the world looks at them. We have the freedom of speech, and everybody always says like, oh, you always have the freedom of speech, you don't have to worry. But I would dare to say that you don't always have the freedom of speech. You don't in these terms, because this is not what freedom of speech should look like. With freedom of speech, you should not be afraid to say even your darkest thoughts out, and nobody should be able to judge it, or at least judge it in a way that limits you as an individual or limits your freedom. Now, this is what I like to get to. If you see someone having the same opinion as they do, or as you do, or you hold dear, it is important to try to somehow help that person. You don't have to publicly say that you support him, but in private say that when shit hits the fan, you will support his opinion rather than the majority's. It might help, right? Because often these people feel alone, they feel like they have no allies, and they feel like we are in a minority, or that we even are alone with that opinion, or the people feel that they are alone. With this sense, with people saying like, okay, I do agree with you on these points, and for people to strive for a nice, coherent and good discussion, we can get more people talking, we can get more opinions out there, and most importantly, we can get more people to express their views on certain topics, and that might help us solve further issues. So whenever you see an opinion that you deem worthy or you deem good, make sure to express your view towards it if that person is under attack or something. It doesn't have to be public. I understand that most of you are afraid to say something in public, but one day, a day will come when you will have to say your opinion in public, and there you have to decide if you will ride the wave with the rest of the people, right, and live in uncomfort, live with a bad feeling in your heart that you didn't do the right thing in the right time, or you will express your true views. You might have some consequences in the current time, but you'll at least express your true opinion, and if that's what matters to you, then go ahead. And for this episode, that's it. Pretty much we will hear each other in 2 weeks in English, of course, with another interesting topic. And for now, goodbye, and thank you for listening.